Video game. You have come such a long way. Yeah, systems on the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, even the Nintendo 64. Classic games. I really like them. Yeah, I don't own that much. But hey, at least I have some classics, such as Simon's Quest. Oh wait, it's a cryptic, confusing mess. Never mind. I also got Quest 64. Oh, never mind, it's incredibly boring. Zelda II. You know, I've heard many people say they don't really like this game despite it being a sequel to a great game on the system, but I wonder, is it really that bad as people are making it out to be? Well, only one way to find out. What? It's a good game. What were you expecting me to say? Crazy people.
Zelda II, the only direct sequel of the first Zelda game on the same console. There was promise to this game, seeing how many people liked the first one, but were sadly disappointed.
I mean, come on, is it really that bad? Well, let's take a look at Zelda II.
Well, right from the start, you can see that this game is a side-scroller, for the most part, which is the biggest complaint that people have for this game. I don't really think it's a bad thing. Think about it, the original Zelda was an overhead view, and if they did the exact same thing for this game, it would have gone stale, especially for the limitation from the NES, and just don't see how else they could have done it. But there's also an overhead view in the Zelda game, but you can't fight anything in this view. Every once in a while, these black figures pop up from the field, and if you touch them, you get sent to a battlefield. Also, wherever you get stopped also changes the area of the game. Say if you get stopped in the desert, then the desert is your battlefield. And there will even be different areas to fight in each area you get stopped at. There are two kinds of black figures. The slime looking one has you fight weaker enemies, but most of the time they give you less experience. And there are these big monster looking ones that has you fight tougher enemies, but mostly reward you with more experience. Every time you kill an enemy, a number appears, and that's how much experience you receive from that enemy. This game feels more like an RPG, which not many people expect from a Zelda game. Every time you get enough experience, a window pops up and you can select what stat to increase. Your health to take more hits, your magic so some spells consume less magic points, or your sword deals more damage. Or at least you would select one, but you can't. Each stat requires a certain amount of experience points to increase one, or you can cancel it by don't seeing a reason to. The window is pointless. They could have just had it so one of your stats would increase automatically. While you're exploring, you'll come across a town, and in each town, there will be a wise man that will teach you a new spell. These spells can be very handy and can make your journey a less of a hell. Although you have to complete a certain side quest before you can talk to some of the old men, such as getting a trophy from a cave or rescuing a little boy. And while you're in town, there will be two ladies. One of them will completely restore your mana, while the other one will restore your health. This becomes extremely useful, since you can't restore your health by finding hearts like in the last game because this game decided not to include hearts to heal you. Instead, you can only heal yourself in town or use a life spell, but the life spell takes up a good chunk of your mana, so it can't always be reliable. This game is also the first Zelda game to include a magic meter. You'll find useful spells as you travel Hyrule, like receiving half damage until you leave the screen, and you can even shoot fireballs. And you'll find heart containers to increase your life like in any other Zelda game, but you'll also find jars that will increase your overall mana as well. You better find these items because this game is hard as hell. That's expected in an NES game, but this game takes it far. Of course with the usual bullshit like being knocked back into a pit and dying instantly, but then there are enemies like the Blue Knights that just keep throwing their weapons and you should constantly be hit. You have 3 lives in this game, and once you run out, Ganon appears as a shadow and laughs at you. Asshole. But seeing as how this is a direct sequel to the first game, it's expected that the only time you see him is when the game's over, since Link turned into Ash in the last game, and the enemies are trying to revive Ganon by taking the blood of Link. Since Link turned him into Ash in the last game, and the enemies are trying to get the blood of Link to revive Ganon. The objective in this game is to go into palaces all over Hyrule and place a crystal in the statues at the end of the dungeon. But good fucking luck trying to do that. You'll be constantly halted to fight enemies and you'll be lucky enough to have enough resources by the time you reach the level. And once you run out of lives, you go back to the starting point of the game. That's bullshit. Did they think that respawning at a palace was too forgiving, so they make you walk all the way back to the palace just to try again? The worst part about it is that you have to travel through Death Mountain just after the 2nd level, and it's the most difficult part of the entire game. You'll be fighting these axe-wielding enemies who has a longer reach than yours, or throws their axes and you take a good deal of damage. This part of the game requires patience, and once you do, you get the hammer and break down the boulder blocking the way just to get your ass handed to you in the later parts of the game. What also makes this game difficult is that your only weapon is your sword. In the previous game, you have bombs, bows and arrows, and a boomerang, etc. But here, your only source of an alternate attack is your magic. But every single one of those takes mana, and some spells takes away a good bit of mana, especially the Thunder spell. That bastard takes away half of your mana, even at full power up. Even some of the items you find in dungeons that were in the previous game aren't really useful in the same way. Like the candle, it's only good for lighting the caves. Or the flute, it's used to make a creature clear the way and open up level 6. How cryptic. Fight the dragon Barba at level 6, and before you even think about traveling to the Great Palace, make sure you power your shit up to the absolute max and collect the mini-links scattered throughout the entire land. Since they can only be used once, you'll need every power you can get to going into this level. So once you get to the Great Palace, the game finally lets you respawn at the temple, so you get some fucking mercy. But at the same time, you'll be fighting some of the toughest enemies ever in this game. Eventually you fight the Thunderbird. He's not too bad if you have good reflexes, but we're not done yet. After you defeat him, you get to fight Dark Link, and holy shit, he is a pain in the ass. He mimics your every moves, and you're bound to die.
You know what? It's cheap. Really fucking cheap. But you know what? It's the only chance I have to actually beating this game. Let's go. Yeah, take that, motherfucker. Anyways, my final thoughts on this game? Not a bad one.
Zelda 2 is not a bad game that people are making it out to be. It tries to be different and try to include some RPG elements, and that's not what people want out of a Zelda game, but it's not bad. It's a hard game and can be very frustrating, but with some patience and skills, it's possible to beat. Even if the last boss is a mimicking fuck.
You know, if you were actually able to get this game and be able to play it, I do recommend you at least try it, especially if you're a fan of the Zelda games. Is it as good as the first one? Not by a long shot, but it is at least worth a playthrough, especially if you have the patience enough to get through this fucker. There have been far worse side-scrollers out there, such as... yeah, that one. But someone else already took care of that game. I'm not. Any closing thoughts right now? No, not really. That's all I gotta say. Really, that's pretty much it. Let's see, fade out in 5, 4... Oh, wait, I gotta tell you something. No, don't!